Well, good day and welcome to you. It is Valentine's Day, February the 14th, and I hope wherever you are, you're having a great day. Now, even if you're hearing this video on some other day other than the 14th of February, I hope you're having a great day too. Now, if you are new to Search for Signs, I want to welcome you. My name is Gary Willing, and if you have heard this information before or if you're new, I always want to take a moment before I get going in these videos to encourage anyone who cares to know more about this information to investigate it for yourself. If you want, you can check out the links that I provided in the description portion of each and every one of these videos. There's a wide variety of information in each one of these links. Anything from cropcircleconnector.net, which is something we're going to talk about here in a bit, to really the people who are occupying the space vehicles and what they mean for humanity, and are they harmful or are they beneficial to humanity? Are they helping us out, right? And you can do that by checking out some of the information coming from the George Adamski Foundation, because he claimed to have contact with the occupants of these vehicles. But if you want to know more about Maitreya, about his priorities, about how miracles and strange phenomena that have been going on for decades, how that relates to all this information, the best website to go to is the Share International site, hands down. Now, I always want to encourage everyone to check out all the links, but if you go to the Share International site first, I think you can get more information about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom there than you can anywhere else. And also, I like to read from time to time. In fact, in most of my videos, I read one of these articles coming from one of these masters. And you can actually read the same article yourself if you're interested by going to the Share International site. And if you see to the left, you'll see some tabs. And one of the tabs is articles by the master. And you can read these articles for yourself. Hands down, it's the best way to get to know this information. But also, it's far better for you to understand what he has to say, internalize what he has to say, for it to really kind of start to sink in, is for you to read it with your own eyes yourself. And not just take my word for it. My intention for reading these articles is really just to encourage you to start to read them yourself. Like I said, that's the best way to do it. Now, the article I'm going to read is entitled "The Time of Revelation." Now, he's talking about the revelation of the knowledge of the fact that we are not alone in the universe, that on each and every one of the planets and even in our solar system is humanity. Most of that humanity is more advanced technologically and spiritually than it is on this planet. And they've been coming here and helping us out for eons. And the activity of our space brothers and sisters has increased exponentially over the years because they're helping us during this time of crisis. And it will be confirmed by Maitreya once Maitreya is out known for who he is, that who and what they are, that they mean us no harm. Not only do they not mean us any harm, they're actually here helping us. And they're here as a spiritual mission, really. And they really are the forces of light that are on this planet, too. So now we're going to talk about them in a bit. But I want to say this. I think there are going to be 3 revelations that are going to happen in the not-so-distant future that are really going to wake humanity up in a way that we can't really possibly imagine the end result of these 3 revelations. That it's surprising that it's taken this long in human history to really come to this point, but, it's time. And that's why this means the time of revelation. But the first one is that we are not alone in the universe, which is what this master is going to talk about. That there's evidence and there's been proof for decades that we have been visited by people from outer space. Now, most of us have heard that they're aliens. We refer to them as aliens. We think they're little green men with huge heads and so forth. Don't really know why they're here, just that it's probably not a good thing that they're here. They might be dangerous. Well, this master is going to talk about how there's no truth to any of that portion of why they're here. They're here to help us, and they actually look just like us. Now, the reason why they're saying they're coming from other planets and not from another dimension or another solar system, and I know what you're saying, and you're saying to yourself, well, I've seen pictures of the surface of Mars or Venus or Mercury perhaps, and I didn't see any cities or humanity on those planets. The part of this revelation is the understanding of our own physical universe, that our physical universe does not only exist of solid, liquid, and gas. It actually, there's 4 levels of physicality above gas known as the etheric. Now, if you're of a scientific mind, you want to investigate it, investigate who Wilhelm Reich is, or was, excuse me. He discovered, I think about 100 years ago or so, an energy field around all things. He called it the orgon. And he stumbled across proof of the lowest level of the etheric that he, like I said, he called it the orgon. But there's actually 4 levels of etheric. And the physicality that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't smell, but it's there. That's where these levels of humanity are on their planet and their planets. So if we were to go to Mars, we wouldn't see anything unless we had etheric vision. But there's actually more people on Mars, according to Benjamin Creme's master, than there is even on this planet. Now, they come here, they help us out, and from time to time, they're trying to wake us up to the fact that there is life on other planets, and they do that by lowering their vibration down low enough to where we can see it. And then when it's time for them to go away, they simply raise the vibration of their ship, and then we can't see it anymore, but they might still be there. And according to Benjamin Creme, if we had etheric vision and we could see up in the sky, we would see hundreds, maybe even thousands of these ships on a given day. And they just don't choose to make their appearance known until it's necessary for them to do that. Now, the evidence is becoming more and more clear that we are being visited by something when it comes to crop circles, which if you go to one of the links, cropcircleconnector.net, they have pictures, GPS coordinates, are you able to see it? Are you able to go there and see it? Of newly formed crop circles every year. So you can see how wonderful the designs are of these things. They're quite extraordinary. And then, of course, as time goes on, more and more evidence is coming out, not only from our own governments, but also from ordinary citizens of these, the activity of the UFOs, because we'll see them flying around, and people are even taking more and more videos of these things, of these strange lights in the sky and so forth. Quite extraordinary stuff. But I do want to say this real quick before we go to the next revelation, is that if you remember a couple years ago, maybe it was like 3 years ago, I guess, under the Trump administration, there was an article that came out, and it was published in a lot of major news outlets online, and I even saw a video of, I think CNN, if I'm not mistaken, where they talked about this article as well. But there were members of the Pentagon who debriefed and informed the then President Donald Trump of UFO activity and members of Congress. Now, Trump, in true Trump fashion, said, no, I don't believe it, but he didn't deny that the meeting existed. And this is the important thing about this whole thing, is just ask yourself, would anybody of any note go and visit with the president and senior members of both houses of Congress about UFO activity if they didn't have actual proof of it? Well, I would say probably not, right? So they would have to be pretty out there to do that, right? And of course, the president wouldn't even take the appointment if they didn't think that there was any truth to it. So something to think about. But anyway, that's the first revelation. The second one is that we as a humanity are not the highest members of the evolutionary food chain, even on this planet. They're actually kingdoms above humanity. And the kingdom above humanity on this planet, directly above humanity, is the spiritual kingdom, or the Masters of Wisdom, which Maitreya is the head of that group. And they are now coming back into the everyday world to teach humanity directly, like they did eons upon eons upon eons ago. And they will be examples for each and every one of us about what it means to truly be divine. Now, we are all divine, but we're not manifesting our divinity. But when we see examples of what it means to be perfect in every way, perfect in terms of harmlessness, in terms of love, in terms of, not harming anybody, even with thought or words or actions, being truly creative, true joyful, perfectly joyful beings. That's the examples we'll get when we start to interact with these masters and see them in our daily lives, whether it's on TV, on the internet, hearing them on radio, or reading about them in books, to even seeing them in our daily lives and so forth, physically, right? We'll have examples of what it means to be truly divine. And we'll start to try to emulate them, because that's really what our purpose is to become more divine. That's going to be a major revelation. But the other thing too, and this is why I'm bringing this up, I've always been quite intrigued and fascinated by the astrophysicist Neil Degrasse Tyson. I think he's a wonderfully brilliant man, but he's, as an astrophysicist, I like to hear him talk, and I find him quite educational. Now, I don't agree with everything he says, because he's very much about life is just kind of life, but I can understand why he's saying that, because he's a scientist, right? He's seeing life through the lens of an astrophysicist, and if it ain't there, it doesn't exist at this time. He's not saying it's never going to exist. He's just saying that until they can prove it scientifically, he's not on board with it, which I can get, right? But the thing that I wanted to say about this real quick before I read this article is I talk about the divisions in thought. And the one that I never mention for some reason is I talk about the divisions politically between right and left politics. I talk about the divisions economically between the rich and the poor, rich and poor nations, rich and poor individuals, and so forth. The reason why there's abject poverty and then extreme wealth. I even talk about the divisions between the hardcore capitalist and the environmentalist. But I never talk about the divisions in thought between the scientific community and the religious community, especially when it comes to the origins of and the creation of the universe, to who and what it means to be human and what it means to be human in this cosmos, right? Never talk about it. But there's a division in thought even between those two schools of thought, right? And one can't see the other side's point of view. And that's what made me get to thinking about this when I was listening to Neil Degrasse Tyson talk about this. So, the revelation that is going to really, I think, break it wide open for humanity is, according to Benjamin Crumb's master, in the not-so-distant future, a few years from now, maybe a decade or so from now, I don't know exactly when, but a group of scientists in France will discover in a lab proof, scientifically, that we are souls in incarnation and not just a body. And so when Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about death, he says, well, that's just when the brain stops, and that's it. Well, the reason why he's saying that is because it hasn't been proven scientifically that we are souls. But eventually, it will be proven scientifically by a group of scientists that we are souls, apparently. And I think between those three revelations, that we're not alone in the universe, that we're not the top of the evolutionary food chain, that we actually are evolving to something, and also that we are souls, it will change the hearts and minds of all humanity to the point where I don't really know if we'll really see what the outcome is. We can think of the outcome of that. But Benjamin Crumb's master touches on it in these articles. So hopefully you'll maybe read some of these articles from that standpoint, that these truths, these revelations are coming down the road here pretty soon. So as insurmountable as the problems may seem to be today, this too shall pass. And, humanity is on its way. It seems like we're coming to the end of the road. We're really not. We just have to change some modes of living. We have to learn to work more cooperatively. And Maitreya and these masters are here to show us exactly how to do that. And that in and of itself will give us a guarantee of a future. And that future is not more of the same. That future is going to be quite extraordinary. And that term doesn't do it any justice. But everything from the way that we see ourselves, to the way that we see ourselves in the universe, to the way that we build our cities, to the way the technology that's coming down the road, all that's going to be radically different and far greater than even the most creative scientific and open-minded scientific science fiction writers could ever possibly imagine is coming down the road. So, and like I said, if you read some of these articles coming from Benjamin Crumb's master, he touches up a lot about it. So hopefully it will maybe give you some hope, but also give you more of an insight into the future if you're so interested. Now, what did he say about the time of revelation? Okay, so let's talk about it. For many years, the peoples of most countries have followed, more or less meekly, the edicts of their legislators, the politicians. This has largely been the case whether the legislative system was democratic or otherwise. This is now beginning to change. Far from quiet acceptance of unpopular laws, people in many countries now demonstrate and demand change. With the exception of those countries under tight military rule, the people more and more are demanding to be heard, to have their needs addressed and bad laws righted. As the beneficent energies of Aquarius gain in potency, this growing power of the people will multiply and become the most powerful voice on earth. So much is this the case even now that governments of all kinds are forced to take account of the people's reaction to laws which deeply concern their welfare. It becomes increasingly difficult for governments to govern along strictly factional lines. Much government action is secretive and obscure. Much is done, quote-unquote, behind the scenes, of which the people never hear, but generally governments, at least in the so-called democratic world, are careful not to rouse the ire or discontent of the people. There is one major area in which this is assuredly not the case. For over 60 years, governments worldwide have withheld from the people the reality of UFOs or flying saucers. Further, they have sought by all means to denigrate the occupants of these visiting craft of aliens, destructive and harmful to the people of Earth. To keep their population under control and to avoid panic, they have denied the experience of hundreds of thousands of intelligent, open-minded citizens. They have thus created a major myth. Flying saucers do not exist, but they are dangerous and rapacious to men of Earth. Likewise, they have taught the people to deride the notion that crop circles are a legacy from space. Yet every government has unassailable proof of the existence, creativity, and superior technology of these brave and harmless visitors from the sister planets of our solar system. Our profound ignorance of the subtle planes of matter has allowed the major governments of the world to maintain this deception for so long. At last, the time of revelation has arrived. For no longer will government agencies hide the truth from men of Earth, their brotherhood with the far-off planets of our solar system. Already, the star-like luminary, the herald of Maitreya's emergence, is showing people worldwide that for years they have been deceived by their governments. You may be sure that Maitreya will reveal the truth of our relationship with the other planets and of the cooperation which for long has continued between us. It is in truth
Remember to take action
the time
and help
of
SOP
revelation.
save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.